and welcome back to the Brazilian Report live on YouTube. My name is Gustavo Ribeiro. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Brazilian Report. And this week I'm delighted to welcome Maurício Moura, CEO of Ideia Big Data. Maurício, thanks for being with us this week.
Gustavo, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Ideia Big Data is a poster which does all sorts of surveys, including a monitoring of government approval and surveys for the election. Ideia, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maurício, but you are either one of either one of the most frequent surveys on government approval, or the one which is monitoring more closely the Bolsonaro administration's government approval, right?
Yes, we have been tracking the government popularity since January 2019, since his first month at the office. So we have a lot of data on Bolsonaro's popularity.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that because we have an election coming, of course, in October. And this week we're going to discuss what is the role that COVID will play in the upcoming elections. But before we get started today, I would like to urge everyone who is watching to sign up to the Brazilian Report, which is the journalistic engine behind these broadcasts. And we have podcasts. So support independent journalism by going to brazilian.report/subscribe and choosing one of our 3 different plans. You can pay monthly, you can pay yearly. We offer a 7-day free trial, no strings attached, which gives you access to the site for a week without the need to insert any credit card details whatsoever. And if you're already a subscriber, you can also offer us coffee and pay to fill up our coffee mugs and help our journalists to give them the energy that we need to cover a country as complex as Brazil and a region as complex as Latin America. So you can head to buymeacoffee.com/Brazilian Report to find out more. So Maurício, without further ado, you said that you have been tracking government approval for the Bolsonaro administration ever since he took office in January 2019. And it has been quite a roller coaster. And at this point, what is the state of government approval? How Brazilians are seeing the Bolsonaro administration, the job that the president himself is performing? What can you tell us about voter perception around this administration?
I think we have the good news and the bad news for the president. Let's start with the good news. He is in 2022. Clearly, his approval rating is better compared to 2021. Right now, our polls are showing that his approval rating ranges between 25 percentage points and 30 percentage points. That's 5 percentage points higher compared to last year. And he also are polling in the negative side, people that evaluate the government bad or very bad, between 45 percentage points and 50 percentage points. This is also better compared to last year, so he is improving. And of course, we're gonna talk about this later. The state of COVID in Brazil also helps this improvement. But the bad news for the president is that when we compare his numbers and with his peers that were re-elected in Brazil after the dictatorship, he compares his worse. His performance is worse compared to Fernando Henrique in 1998, Dilma in 2014, and of course Lula in 2006. So he's coming to the election, and it's important to mention that all presidents that seek to re-election in Brazil, they were elected, but Bolsonaro is, and they all improved popularity during the election year, the re-election year. So Bolsonaro is in the same trend. His popularity is improving. However, and this is important for the bad news for the president, when you compare, he's coming with a lower positive approval rating, and a greater negative rating. So he's going to have to have I would say a better curve trend compared to all the peers. And when we compare to Dilma, that was the president that had the closest race for re-election bid, he's even a little bit worse compared to Dilma in the approval ratings, and much worse compared to the negative rate. So he's going to have a real challenge in terms of popularity to win the re-election.
Now, I have one question, and I don't know if we have enough data to do this kind of assessment, but is Bolsonaro this unpopular just because voters think he's doing a poor job as president, or is it perhaps more connected to the fact that today we have more and more polarized society, and I mean, we I don't think we're ever going to see popularity levels like the ones we saw in 2010 when Lula quit office with like 80% approval ratings. We had Dilma Rousseff, Michel Temer, now Bolsonaro, and even Lula, who, if the elections were today, would probably be elected. He comes with a rejection rate that is extremely high and higher than the one he had when he was in office. I mean, is the era of very popular presidents over in Brazil, and we're going to see this kind of voter harshness towards the incumbent? So from now on,
no. First of all, you said many things. Let's go one by one. First one, we're going to have a battle of rejections in this election. So, as you mentioned, we're going to have the rejection of the PT, the Lulas, and the rejection of the government. Whatever it's lower in October, probably we'll elect the next president. And you are completely right. The polarization doesn't help popularity. But what happened to Bolsonaro, he lost many voters that voted for him in 2018. And that was not because of polarization. That was because of the government itself. Of course, it's much tougher to get someone that likes Lula to vote for Bolsonaro, but he lost 15, 20 percentage points of people that voted for him. And the basic two components of this rejection of the government. The first one is the COVID itself, the management of the COVID crisis. And the second one, as you know, Gustavo, there's a lot of people in Brazil suffering with the current economic conditions. And then we are talking about the combination of inflation, of unemployment, of a huge informal sector that Brazilian economy has. So those are and of course the president is very accountable to the economy. Bolsonaro tries to share responsibility when you talk about other issues like health, like security, like transportation, infrastructure. But when you talk about economy, people associate with presidents and presidential accountability. And the last point, you are completely right. There is a in 2013, when we have the massive protests in Brazil, as you recall, that was the division between governments with high level of popularity and lower. So the governments that came afterwards, and not only the presidential government at the state level as well, they have much more trouble to keep a high level of popularity. And this is a big issue. But the case of Bolsonaro, there is a component of mismanagement in terms of as I said, of the COVID and also the economy.
So talking about COVID, which is the core subject that we were going to discuss today, we can list a number of botched ways, a number of ways in which the government botched the pandemic response. The government actively went against purchasing vaccines. It actually touted unproven treatments like hydroxychloroquine. It went against nearly every single medical consensus in this past 2 years. And we had a Senate committee that for 6 months inquired over how the government responded to the coronavirus, offered 82 indictment requests, including accusing the president of 9 crimes, such as crimes against humanity. What did COVID do? I mean, can we measure to what extent this COVID mismanagement hurt the president? To what point is the overall economic problems, and to what extent is the COVID situation?
Yeah, no, that was terrible for the popularity. Remember that Bolsonaro began his term in office with around 45% of a positive approval rating. And one of the, especially the first trimester of 2021, that we have a peak of cases in Brazil without the vaccine. Remember that the first quarter we didn't have the vaccine yet. That was hurt a lot his popularity, and the critical issue for the public opinion overall was the fact that Bolsonaro did not associate himself with the vaccine, because as you know, the Brazilian population, they are used to vaccines. They are used to take vaccines. It's very different from the US, that it's not part of the culture to get vaccinated in a massive scale. So Bolsonaro basically, and when we run surveys about the vaccine, 95% of the Brazilians wanted to be vaccinated. So it's a huge support for vaccine, and he didn't associate himself with the vaccine. And I think Bolsonaro is one of the few heads of state that didn't mention publicly if he is vaccinated or not. Even Donald Trump announced it after he left office that he was.
And Bolsonaro even sealed information for 100 years around his vaccination card. So
this is hurt a lot his popularity, because in Brazil people do understand that vaccination is important. People value vaccination. We have a history about vaccinating a massive scale. So that for sure it hurt his popularity, and especially when people realized, and that's a critical point, that he couldn't had bought vaccines before. And that was a critical point. And of course, this is, if the opposition would play that during the campaign, that's something that Bolsonaro would have a very difficult task to respond, because he as you mentioned, he did many acts against the vaccine. But on the other hand, it's important to mention that if we don't have a peak of cases during the election in September, October, the COVID is not going to be the main topic of discussions. What we have seen in different countries is that COVID hurts the incumbents and the political groups in power if the elections are held in a period of high level of cases. That happened, and as I mentioned, in United States with Donald Trump, COVID in October, November 2020 was a key component for the Biden victory. That happened with the local elections with the party of the President Macron that was reelected here. They lost key municipal elections because of what happened during the COVID. There's a very interesting example in India that we have two periods of state elections. One was during the worst time of COVID crisis in India, and the prime minister lost an important state of India, and the other one was like 1 month ago, and without the same peak of cases, he had a huge win. So COVID hurts and it's tough, because we as a social scientist have no clue what's going to happen with COVID actually. So, but if COVID's not an issue during the election, of course, other topics, as for example the economy, they're going to play a much bigger role.
And even during the worst times of COVID, Bolsonaro's approval rate actually went up, while the government had that aid program of 600 reais, which is around $120 by today's foreign exchange currency rate. Per month, which doesn't seem like a lot, and it actually isn't, but for tens of millions of people, it is more money than they have ever seen in their lives in a single month, despite the COVID peaks. And I remember we had this discussion at the turn of the year, that if we take the curves of economic expectations and the curves of presidential approval, they have the same trends and almost coincide, right?
Totally. That's a critical component. And it's important to point about this financial aid that we had in 2020. It was very important to keep the Bolsonaro's popularity. Remember that at that time we didn't have a vaccine as a way out of the pandemic. But of course we have different reactions of this aid. In big cities, big metropolitan areas, of course, this was like a support. But in some countries, parts of Brazil, in small cities, in the countryside, medium-sized cities in the countryside, this money was really a game changer for many people. But what was tough on the government, and I'm not here to discuss the public policy behind, but they cut the financial aid in the end of December 2020, and it was a tough combination because we did in January 2021, in February 2021, people didn't have the financial support, and we had the peak of cases, as you do remember. Without at that moment, the
And it
vaccine.
took 4 months for the aid to come back.
So it was a tough combination, and of course, right now, what people are asking, and of course, the financial income transfer program that the government had put in place right now, it helps. But people are asking themselves, is that something permanent, or they're going to cut out after the election, because it happened before in 2020.
But Maurício, we have seen Bolsonaro recover some of the voters he lost after 2018, and we have seen, according to many different polls, an improvement in economic expectations, and that despite the fact that our interest rates have spiked faster than any other in the world, from 2% in March of last year to almost 12% now. And that makes it harder for people to buy real estate, to buy a new car, to get access to credit, which is a very important part of Brazilian economic life. Inflation is at a 12-month inflation is at a 19-year peak. I mean, it doesn't seem like we have many pieces of good news around, and still we are seeing this improvement in expectations and improvement in the president's approval rating. In your opinion, what explains that? What explains that?
No, the improvement of the approval rating is a combination of many factors. One of course, the income transfer program helped, and we did measure that, so it was an important component, not only to this small improvement, but also to they were losing popularity in 2021, so that helped. Of course, there is the COVID. Now the people are feeling that the life is back. Also, this good mood helps. But remember, we have to be careful, because this improvement comes from regions, especially the south and the center west of Brazil, that are very related to the agriculture economy. And those are different animals comparing to the feel-good sensation. So basically, Bolsonaro's improvement comes from people that used to approve, used to have a good view of the government, and now they're coming back. The goal for Bolsonaro to be reelected is to get an improvement, a real improvement in other regions of Brazil. For example, that for me is the key region for this election, the southeast, where is São Paulo, Rio, and Minas Gerais are located. So those are places that have huge cosmopolitan areas, with metropolitan areas with a lot of people, a lot of voters, and those are the places that Bolsonaro still has to improve his popularity in order to win the election. But we see, especially this improvement comes from those regions that I mentioned.
And we just had today a federal police operation looking into corruption schemes during the purchase of ventilators in the worst moments of the pandemic. And that plays into Bolsonaro's talking points, which is like, the Senate should never have investigated my government. It should actually be looking into states and municipalities and how they were using the money for other things rather than fighting COVID. Do you think, how much do you think this kind of operation, if we see more of them coming from here to the election, how much will they help the president deflect some of the blame for the problems with COVID in Brazil?
I don't think that you're going to help or that much. Because again, the key for if COVID is not an issue right now, and the vaccination was not a state issue, was a federal issue, the key point would be the economy. The people are looking for medium and long-term solutions for the economy. So I do understand that helps his narrative, and I do understand that helps the communication with his bubble. but I don't see that as a key factor to get the voters that he needs to convince to get reelected.
Yeah, it's in a country as unequal as Brazil, that James Carville adage of "it's the economy is stupid," it's even more of a thing, right?
No, totally. And I do see, and this is based on my surveys, that since I start covering presidential elections in Brazil in 1994, I don't see a cycle, an election cycle, that the economy is so present in their minds and hearts of the Brazilians. Because, like I said, it's a unique combination of unemployment, inflation, informal sector, the discussion behind the type of income transfer that the government could offer to the population. And on top of that, it's important to see that we have different Brazils inside Brazil. Like I said, what we call the agriculture frontier in Brazil, there is a much better sensation about the future and about the economy than in very big metropolitan areas, for example. So it's a very unique context, but the economy is going to play, like I said, assuming that we're not going to have any issues with COVID. That's a very tough assumption for someone that is not a specialist on pandemics. But assuming that it's not going to be an issue, and we hope so, that the combination of the issues in the economic side is unique.
Yeah. And not to put you on the spot, just before I let you go, do you think many experts saw a Lula win as the base scenario? Can we still use that as the base scenario for forecasts about October, or at this point it has gotten to a point that is too dangerous to make many predictions because of, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen to COVID exactly. We don't know the effects of COVID in China is going to have over the Brazilian economy. So, I mean, we will plead the fifth in this question about what is your base scenario?
What is, I would say, straightforward to talk about re-election campaigns globally is that there is a very important predictor based on data that predicts re-elections of presidents, and this is the popularity. So the key question of this election is going to be, like I said, the battle of the rejections. What's going to be bigger in October? It's going to be the rejection of the government that, as of today, is bigger than the rejection of the PT. So this is the key. And in that sense, it's straightforward. On the other hand, any president that's in office, he's playing a very active role. So he can change things. He has the budget. He has the power. What people say in Brazil, he has the pen. So the key variable for us to monitor is going to be his popularity and his approval ratings.
Maurício, thank you very, very much.
Gustavo, thank you so much for the invitation, and congratulations on the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you very much. And for those who are interested in Mauricio's takes, he writes a monthly column at the Brazilian Report in the last about which is the role that COVID is or isn't going to play in the October 2022 elections. And just before we go, I would like to remember everyone watching this video to go to Brazilian.report. You can subscribe, and before actually you commit to any of our plans, you can test drive the website for a week without any financial commitment, without inputting any credit card details whatsoever. Once again, I thank Maurício Moura, CEO of Ideia Big Data. Maurício, have a great week. And for everyone watching, thanks for staying with us for this 25 minutes. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.